library curator at the Nebraska State Historical Society. She's responsible for Nebraska and Western history acquisitions in the library archives. Cindy has worked in a variety of positions in the library, and through her acquired a keen interest through her interest in genealogy and family history. Her presentation today, Nebraska License Plates, is derived from her interest in her own family's history. Please welcome Cindy Steinoff Drake.
Thank you, Richard. I'm happy we have some nice weather today for all of you to be out, so not like the snowstorm that we had last week. Well, my interest in Nebraska license plates began when I was growing up on a farm near Avoca, Nebraska in Cass County. On one wall in an old garage on our farm, my father, Arthur Steinoff, had a collection of Nebraska license plates. These two slides were taken inside the old garage. Through the years, he told me about his father starting the collection in 1915 and that he continued the tradition after he purchased his first car in 1937. After my parents had their farm auction in 1994, I carefully took down all the license plates to store them for our family. In 1995, I told the late Don Hill, curator of the Cass County Historical Museum, about our set of license plates. He asked if we would be willing to loan the plates to the society for a temporary exhibit, and if I would give a brown bag about the collection at the museum in Plattsmouth. This took place on March 12, 1996. My original program focused more on my Cass County families, their automobiles, and the license plate collection. These 4 slides are of the exhibit which was on display through the fall of 1996. My program today will be about the history of Nebraska license plates, as well as highlighting the loyalty that native Nebraskans like myself have to their license plates. Although there were cars in Nebraska before 1900, there are no official records from the state of Nebraska until the Motor Vehicle Act became law on July 1st, 1905. This law required Nebraska auto owners to pay $1 to register their vehicles with the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State was to give a number beginning with 1 and continuing in order of filing. The Secretary of State supplied a seal of aluminum or other suitable metal which was to be circular in form, not over 2 inches in diameter, and have stamped therein the words registered in the office of the Secretary of State for the state of Nebraska, etc., with the registration number inserted therein. The seal shown in this slide is from the collection of John White, a state patrolman from Omaha, who is a collector of Nebraska license plates and a member of the Automobile License Plate Collectors Association. You can estimate the size of this seal by comparing it with the dime on the left. The law also stipulated that every motor vehicle shall also at all times have the number assigned to it by the Secretary of State displayed on the back of the vehicle in such a manner as to be plainly visible, the number to be in Arabian numerals, each not less than 3 inches in height, and each stroke to be of a width not less than 1/2 inch. The law continued with instructions that the initials of the state's name should appear in characters not less than 2 inches in height. The owners made their own license plates since they were not supplied by the Secretary of State. Most owners preferred metal numerals attached to a leather background, but some reportedly painted the figures on their vehicles. The license plates shown in these 5 slides are from Mr. White's collection and the Nebraska State Historical Society's museum collection. The first 4 slides are leather plates. While the 5th one shows one that is on chicken wire, and the bottom one is on tin. The Nebraska Secretary of State Motor Vehicle Register for 1905 to 1907 lists these early registrations. This volume is available on microfilm in the Library Archives Reference Room at the headquarters building of the Historical Society at 1500 R Street. The first record for number 1 begins with the date June 14th, 1905, and ends with number 1488 on June 24th, 1907. The first page of this record book is shown in this slide. To register a car, an owner made application to the Secretary of State giving his name, his place of residence, the kind of machine he owned, and how much horsepower of the vehicle. Number 1 was issued to A.U. Dan of Kearney, and the car was a Rambler Tourist with the 20 horsepower. This vehicle was later transferred to C.E. Dungan of Kearney before June 15, 1907. A booklet entitled List of Registrations of Motor Vehicles in Nebraska, numbers from 1 to 1446, was published during the time this record book was being used by the Secretary of State. This slide shows the cover of the booklet, which is available in the library archives. During the first year, 571 owners registered their vehicles, and the figures grew through the years. 4,200 by 1908, 11,708 by 1912, 25,616 by 1913, 40,929 by 1914, and over 100,000 by 1916. In 1911, the legislature changed the registration fee to $2 per year for each motor vehicle, other than a motorcycle, which remained at $1. All registration fees were to be paid to the county treasurer and credited to the county road fund. This law also provided that licenses were to be lighted so they would be visible from 100 feet at night. The 4-inch letters were to be white on a black background and be displayed upon the front and back of each motor vehicle. These slides show license plates with white painted numbers on a black background. The first plate is from Mr. White's collection, and the second plate is from the Historical Society's museum collection. The Secretary of State started a new motor vehicle register after 1907. Registration number 1 was assigned to S.E. Hawley from Kearney in Buffalo County for his Rio car with 35 horsepower. In 1915, a law instructed the Secretary of State to issue permanent registration numbers to each owner, establishing the precedent for the present practice. Contrary to popular belief, low numbers were never sold, but could be inherited within the same family. The same law instructed the Motor Vehicle Division to furnish automobile owners with one metal license plate to ensure uniformity. The plate was to be conspicuously displayed upon the rear of each motor vehicle. The color of this number plate was to be changed every year. The legislature also approved new fees in 1915 when they were raised to $3 for non-business vehicles and $5 for business vehicles. From July 7, 1911 until 1915, the state kept 2 sets of volumes for motor vehicles. One set was in order by license plate number. The other set listed vehicle owners individually in their county of residence. My grandfather, William Steinoff, is listed with a vehicle for the first time in Volume 8, page 73 of the Motor Vehicle Register by counties on May 11, 1915, as shown in this slide. He was given number 6819, which is down here on this line. I wish I could have presented more slides to you from these various register books, but unfortunately some of the ink is a little faded and it's hard to duplicate it in a slide for you. Once I had his license plate number, I could locate him in the first set of records and verify that he registered a Ford with 20 horsepower. The Motor Vehicle Register by counties for 1915 also includes the number of car dealers in most of the counties in Nebraska. The license plate my grandfather Steinoff was assigned is shown in this slide. The original colors were black letters on a white background. This is the first license plate that started the Steinhoff license plate collection. New license plates were distributed by the state on a yearly basis from 1915 to 1919. In 1919, the function of administrating the motor vehicle department was transferred from the Office of the Secretary of State to the newly created Department of Public Works. Within this department, the Division of Motor Vehicles Registration handled the registrations of vehicles and license plates. A review of the laws in 1919 mentioned that the letter D was to appear on number plates issued to dealers and T on plates issued for trucks and trailers. This law also stated that it was unlawful to use fictitious or altered plates. The Department of Public Works monthly report for November of 1919 reported that a license plate was taken from the car of a Nebraska citizen who attempted to defraud the state of $10, the current registration fee. The individual had taken his 1918 plate and attempted to place 19 from another old plate over the 18. This is the quote taken from the article. Then, too, the bolts that riveted the 1919 in place leered like eyes to anyone but the counterfeiter. The ruse did not work. It never does when keen-eyed men are employed by the state to see that just such cheating and forgery is put to a stop. A metal revalidation tab was used for the first time in 1920 to place on the license plate from the previous year. Vehicle registrations totaled 221,000 in 1920. In 1921, the legislature approved that the division would now supply two number plates, one for the front of the vehicle and the other for the back of the vehicle. New license plates were distributed in 1921. The practice of issuing plates with the county number system was initiated in 1922. This slide shows the county code numbers. Douglas County, having the most autos, was number 1. Lancaster County was number 2, and so on through Hooker County, which had the fewest cars. Each county was assigned a key number designating the order of the counties in which the larger number of vehicles had been registered. For example, a Douglas County car with number 227 would carry 1-227. The number of registered vehicles in Douglas County in 1923 was 31,593, while the number in Hooker County was 188, giving Hooker County residents number 93. License plates were distributed on a yearly basis from 1922 to 1942. My grandfather Steinhoff's license plate number became 20-702 in 1922, which was the number he had until 1927. This slide shows the 1922 license plate. The original color of this plate was black letters on a white background. It was also in 1922 that the state went from central distribution of automobile license plates to distribution directly by the county treasurers. In 1927, my grandfather Steinhoff purchased a new car called a Star. His license plate number became 20-2640. This slide shows the 1927 license plate. The original colors were white letters on a lavender background. Registrations of motor vehicles numbered over 450,000 in 1930. In 1931, the legislature provided for the manufacturers of plates at the state penitentiary. In 1951, a law was passed requiring all plates to be manufactured at the penitentiary. In 1933, the Motor Vehicle Division, which included the Division of Motor Vehicles Registration, became part of the Department of Roads and Irrigation. My grandfather's license plate in the family collection for 1932 is 20-T517, as shown in this slide. Apparently, he lost the license plate for his automobile, and this plate was for his 1928 Rugby truck. The collection continues with the license plate number 20-2640 between 1933 to 1936. My father purchased his first car in 1937, a black Chevy Coupe. His license plate was 20-1743, as shown in this slide. During 1940 and 1941, there was a design of the State House on the license plates with the name of the state in the bottom of the building, as shown in this slide of the 1941 license plate. As stated previously, between 1921 and 1942, plates were issued annually. Metal revalidation tabs were issued in the years 1943, 1944, and 1947, as shown in this slide. The tabs continued to be metal in 1953 and 1959, but they were changed to a decal type in 1961. New license plates were distributed again on a yearly basis from 1945 to 46 and from 1948 to 1952. The biggest controversy regarding Nebraska license plates came as the result of a decision in 1950 to replace the county numbers with letter designations. This slide shows the Nebraska county codes along with their county numbers. In April of 1950, Governor Val Peterson offered the suggestion that the first and second letters in the name of each county be used for the county designation. If duplicates occurred, it would pass on in the case of the second county to the third or fourth letter in the county name. Apparently, there were some problems with some of the counties in doing this. Adams County's number 14 became A. Lancaster County's number 2 became L. And Douglas County's number 1 became X. Residents who had license plate numbers under 10,000 could keep their number, but if their number was over that, it would be changed. Under the new system, the numbers ran from 1 to 9,999. To differentiate between identical numbers in each 10,000 group, letters were used with the first 10,000 using A, the second B, etc. As shown in this slide, my father's license plate became C for Cass County, 1743, and A, because he was in the first group of 9,999. This slide visualizes the county codes in a state map. Because of the public outcry about the change, the legislature put a law into effect in 1951 that the state would use the numerical county symbols formerly used since 1922. The assigned numbers from 1922 are a source of pride to residents of most counties. In 1979, the Lincoln Star brought to the attention of its readers that Sarpy County had the third highest population in the state and deserved number 3 instead of Gage County, which now ranked 12th in population that year. In January 1996, Senator Eric Wall outraged Custer County residents when he introduced a bill to swap Sarpy County's number 59 for Custer County's number 4. The Custer County Chief newspaper even had a 2-page ad focused against this bill on January 16, 1996, which was sponsored by the businesses of the county. The ad is shown in this slide. Senator Wall had suggested the change because Sarpy County has to stack number 59 on their plates, making it more difficult to read. The bill was killed before it made it to the legislative floor. With the return to county numbers in 1952, my father continued with the same license plate of 20-1743 until 1965, as shown in this slide with his 1952 plate. The 1952 plates were used for 2 years, and a metal tag was used for the revalidation for 1953. The vehicle registration fee for passenger cars weighing over 2,800 pounds was $5 in 1953. New plates became available again in 1954, and new plates on a yearly basis were produced every year until 1958. In 1956, the Beef State slogan was added to the license plates, as shown in this slide. In 1957, a law was passed that in even years plates would be issued, and in odd years, tabs would be issued. It was also in 1957 that the legislature created a separate Department of Motor Vehicles. New plates were issued in 1962, and tabs, or as they are known today, validation stickers, were issued for 1963. The legislature approved a renewal tab for 1964 instead of new plates, which appeared again in 1965. In 1966, the slogan, "The Beef State," was replaced with the word "Centennial" to commemorate the state's centennial. License plates starting with 1966 also became reflectorized. Validation stickers were used in 1967 and 1968. The 1966 plate is shown in this slide. With the additions of letters to license plate numbers in 1966, my father had to drop one of the digits of his license plate number that he had had for 30 years. Since the letters A or S were not available in Cass County when it was time for him to register, he took C for my mother and I. It was reported by the Motor Vehicle Department in 1970 that many persons used their street numbers as their license numbers, with the prefix letter being the first letter of their last names, or possibly the street name or beginning of that name. Families who had more than one vehicle frequently requested a series of numbers in succession, or all the same numbers with different letter prefixes. After the centennial, the slogan became the Cornhusker State, as shown in this slide with the plate for 1969. The 1969 plates were used until 1971. A piece of trivia about the 1969 license plates: about 800,000 pounds of steel plus reflectorized material and lettering paint went into making the 2 million plates that were produced. A popular issue in regard to license plates came in 1971, when the legislature approved the use of prestige license plates. Characters on the plates had to be the same size and design as those found on regular plates. No more than 6 characters were to be used, and not more than 1 numeral. The message on the personalized plates could not express, connote, or imply any obscene or objectionable words or abbreviations. The prestige plates could not carry the county number. The price was $50 for the first set, with renewals annually thereafter at a cost of $25. Plates issued in 1972 were to last for 3 years. Then, beginning in 1975, plates would be issued annually. The State Motor Vehicles Department held a lottery to see which Nebraska applicant would get contested prestige automobile license plates, such as Big Red or Husker. The 1982 legislature raised the price of prestige plates to $75, with renewals at $35. The plate in this slide belonged to the late Marvin F. Kivett, former director of the Historical Society, who gave them to our museum collections. In 1976, there was a bicentennial plate issued to all passenger vehicles. The plate had the word Nebraska on a red banner across the top, and the slogan 1775 Bicentennial 1976 on a blue banner across the bottom, as shown in this slide. In the upper left-hand corner was a blue sketch of a covered wagon, and in the upper right-hand corner there was a blue sketch of an Indian chief. My father had 2 cars in 1976, a 1964 Chevrolet that I used that had his usual number of C734, and his 1984 Chevrolet that had this number D743. Unfortunately, he didn't save the license plate from the 64 Chevy when he sold it. The bicentennial plates were used for 8 years, the longest stretch without a plate change in Nebraska's license plate history. As you can see, my father tried to be creative to show every one of the renewal stickers, which got to be a little difficult. During the intervening years, the proposal to abandon the 1976 bicentennial plates for new plates was introduced in the legislature, debated, and dropped. Since the senators argued about the slogan to be printed on the plates, no agreement was reached, resulting in a plain label plate for 1984 with just Nebraska across the top, as shown in this slide. Not all of the new plates were ready by January of 1984. So the 1984 legislature passed a bill with an emergency clause for giving residents temporary tabs so they could continue to keep the same license plates they had had for years. The 1982 legislature called for license plates to be issued every 6 years, and the plates' colors changed each time a new design was implemented. This law was changed in 1983 to have new plates issued every 3 years, and a license plate cash fund was created to pay for the manufacturing license plates, the stickers, and the tabs. Questions were raised again in 1983 about changing the state's historic numbering system, since a statewide system would eliminate county-by-county guesswork of how many plates to order. There were reports of counties ordering too many plates that they later had to destroy. The 1984 legislature authorized special plates to former prisoners of war. Special license plates for Pearl Harbor survivors were first issued in 1986. The 1989 legislative session authorized plates for disabled American veterans and Purple Heart recipients. Another controversy arose in 1986 when the Motor Vehicles Department started reviewing 10,000 prestige plates after receiving complaints about particular plates. They recalled 12 plates at the time. One of the plates was Red Pig, owned by Hildreth banker Kenneth Frerichs. Big Red was the name of a sports organization and a fishing cabin at the Hildreth Reservoir. It also describes the Duroc Hogs. After complaining about the recall, the legislature passed a resolution directing the department to reissue his plate. Governor Carey personally delivered the letter authorizing him to continue using his plate. The new plates for 1987 came with a new design, as shown in this slide. The design on the new plates issued in 1990 has a windmill in the left corner, as shown in this slide. It was reported in 1989 that employees of the Dempster Industry Incorporation from Beatrice was furious that a Dempster mill was not used for the design. The company was in its 110th year in the state and the only one of 2 windmill makers in the country that were still in existence. The 1989 legislature increased the number of characters on the prestige license plates from 6 to 7. The use of no more than 1 numeral on these plates was changed to 3 in 1975. Newly designed license plates were issued on January 1st, 1993, as shown in this slide. The plates have embossed dark blue characters on a white background with the word Nebraska at the top in red block letters, surrounded by a silhouette of western Nebraska's historic Chimney Rock, the Platte River, a windmill, eastern Nebraska's urban skyline, and the glow of sunshine on the horizon. In 1993, the legislature approved dropping the price for prestige plates from $75 to $30, which was effective July 1st of 1993. Renewals each year are still $30. The law also changed the term from prestige to message plates. The 1996 legislature approved the Cornhusker Spirit license plates. These plates have a cream background, scarlet numbers, and the word Huskers or Cornhuskers. They are numbered consecutively. The flyer from the Department of Motor Vehicles for these plates is shown in this slide. The first 100 Husker Spirit plates were awarded through a lottery. Again in 1995 and 1996, 2 bills regarding a change to the county numerical system never made it to the floor of the legislature. LB 321 would have reassigned county numbers based on current population figures, so counties such as Sarpy and Scotts Bluff, who would receive single digits, would not have to stack their numbers. LB 1358 recommended the use of a combination of letters and numbers on the license plates with no designation for counties. Nebraskans have a new state plate for 1996 to 98. The design has few changes since 1993. My father sold his last car in 1996, so I made an early request to the Cass County Treasurer's Office to have his license plate number transferred to our family car in October of 1996. The total number of vehicles registered in Nebraska for 1996 was 1,786,534. Nebraska is still one of 8 states, most are in the Midwest and the West, that still have county designations, according to Thompson C. Murray, author of the official license plate book published in 1996. The cover of his book is shown in this slide. According to an Omaha World Herald article printed in 1996, Nebraskans could save an estimated $100,000 a year by switching to plates that don't designate the county. County treasurers wouldn't have to maintain libraries of plates. Fewer plates would be thrown away at the end of the 3-year license plate cycle. The use of alphanumeric plates or universal plates would not differentiate between counties, so surplus plates from one county could be shipped to another county that ran short. There was also a bill introduced this year to change the requirements from the current 2 plates to just 1 plate. This slide shows a page from Mr. Thompson's book. It is a display of some of the various Nebraska license plates presently being used in the state. Currently, there are 31 Nebraska license plate classifications. The original motor vehicle register volumes that I mentioned earlier that the Historical Society Library Archives has in their collection are available only for the years from 1905 to 1915. If you would like to view these records, they will be available for use in the Library Archives reference room during their regular hours during the week and weekend until May 1st. After that date, please call in advance to use them on the weekends. Records of license plate numbers are temporary records, so these types of records after 1915 do not exist at the state level at the Historical Society or the Division of Motor Vehicles. It is possible that some county treasurers might have kept older records that researchers could locate in the counties. Other sources would be unpublished lists compiled since 1915, as shown in this slide for 2 books from Hamilton and Hooker counties that are in our collection. This Hamilton County Auto Directory that was done in 1956, and a license plate directory done for 1993 for Hooker County. In Cass County and some other counties that I'm aware of, it was popular to publish the license plate numbers in the yearly county fair books. A few years ago, this practice was discontinued, mainly because of Privacy Act laws that are being signed into effect this year. Since this program was on historical license plates, I must remind you that there was a law established in 1973 and revised since that time in regard to the use of license plates on vehicles which are 30 or more years old. You may contact the Department of Motor Vehicles for more information and their historical license plate application form. If you are interested in the collecting of license plates and conferring with other collectors, I have the address here, the website address and membership information for the Automobile License Plate Collectors Association. Finally, to review the dates and the color of Nebraska license plates, I'm showing this last slide that is titled History of Nebraska License Plates. This is my presentation today on Nebraska license plates, and if any of you have some questions from the audience, I will attempt to answer them, or I'll refer you to someone who could, or to the sources that we could check for you.
When did the prison industry begin to produce license plates for the state?
The date that I mentioned, it was in the 30s, the early 1930s. My understanding, the way the rules, the laws and everything read, it was more like the state provided money for the penitentiary to start to do it. And it wasn't until 1951 then that they established that the penitentiary definitely would make all the license plates for the state. Yes, Bob?
Did the conservation of metal during World War II and the Korean War affect?
I'm sure that was the basic reasoning behind most of that, yes. That seems very logical.
What makes a license plate valuable? Is it the rarity or among these collectors? I guess?
Okay, among the collectors, and what I've been told is collecting those with the lowest numbers. And I must admit that Mr. White, who brought in some of his plates for me to take slides of, he told me that he has not seen any license plates with any numbers below 3 digits. He has some that are 4, and he's seen people with 4, but he's never seen any with 3 digits. And one of the reasons we think this may be is because those were assigned on just those little metal, round, circular objects, and they just probably were lost. But I would be interested, and I'm sure he would be too, if there are some individuals out there who might have the license plates that were introduced during that 1905 to 1907 time period that are 3 digits or less. Yes.
Who chooses what is on the plate? And have they ever considered doing, as Iowa does, having the county under there and getting rid of the number?
Well, as of now, the legislature decides it. This was an interesting fact that I just found out yesterday. Within my program, I had said that in 1922, these county numbers were introduced. I took for granted that there was a law that did that. It did not, because what happened is that it was just introduced by the Division of Motor Vehicles, and that a system was just adopted, and that's the way it was. In 1950, the Division of Motor Vehicles, the head at that time, he wanted to do some changes in the license plates, and he took it to the governor. And Governor Peterson at that time, he looked over the situation and some of the other reports from Nebraskans, and he was the one who recommended this change of going to the county codes with the lettering system. And it turned out then that since there was such an uproar from people across the state about it, it was like the Division of Motor Vehicles said they had had more complaints about changing to county codes than having the number system, which was outdated according to population. They had more complaints with the county codes than they did with the number system. So then the 1951 legislature put in a law at that time, it did not become a law until 1951, that the county code number system that had been used since 1922 would become a law on the books. So that's why today any of these changes, have to be made by the legislature. It's no longer a decision of the Division of Motor Vehicles or a governor or someone else in charge. So, yes.
I have a license plate dated 1912, but it is of a regular license plate, full metal. Is that a rarity?
Yes, it may be. Because
apparently the individuals and there were certain firms that made regular license plates during that time?
That could very well be. I am not aware of it, though. There hasn't been any that have come to my attention. So if there are some, this might be something that we might be able to check further in old Nebraska State Gazetteers and business directories, because those would be in existence at that time. But most of the time, what I was told is that, or what I found mentioned too, is that you just had locksmiths or other types, who just made these metal letters and then put them on leather. Just like making leather saddles and things like that. So, any other questions?
Do you have any details of what constitutes an antique license? You said the car had to be, or vehicle had to be over 30 years old.
Yes, it has.
What about license, liability, this kind of thing, and load? Are you prohibited from hauling anything on a, say for instance, a 30-plus-year-old pickup?
Okay. I'm not that familiar with the law. I just was looking over the statute briefly yesterday, and I believe that's still that for those 30-year older vehicles, it's more that you could use the license plate that was originally for the vehicle or from that time period. I believe that you can only use this for if you're having it on display or county fairs. But the best person to talk to would be one of the staff members at the Division of Motor Vehicles, because I was not aware either that there's a special application. They just gave me a copy of it last week. There's a special application that you can get from the Division of Motor Vehicles, and then they can explain the law to you in detail too. Just like for that historical plate information, this law first came and now it's been revised many times. It's all down in the statutes for Nebraska. So what used to be with license plates that could be decided by a state official has now became a legislative issue for everything in regards to the license plates. Yes, Bob?
Cindy, I think the historical license plates was a one-time fee, was it not? And then you got the license plate and you kept it with your antique car.
Yeah, there's some types of a renewal type sticker that you put on it,
And I
yeah.
think there were some abuses of that because anyone with a 30-year-old or older car were getting these license plates. And the intent was for classic car collectors and things. So now you're very limited in the use of the plate. You can only use the car during parades and events like that, not for everyday use.
Since notification of this program, I've had a gentleman who called me who had a car, of I think around a 1905, 1907 vintage, and that's why he was checking very carefully with me about when these early registration numbers were given and the order and what time period they were given, because he had some older license plates and he wanted to see if the license plate he had was of the right vintage to be on that car. So that's where I found out a little bit more about that. And then, as I said, the Division of Motor Vehicles, they gave me their application, and then looking at the statutes, the statute has complete listings of what you can or cannot do. Yes?
Why do you think people get so emotional over their license plates?
Well, I think some of the comments that I have read in the newspapers over the years about some of these controversies, one of the comments I've seen several times is that people become identified with that. They think of it as their personalized ID number. And I'm sure that is the case, that those plate numbers have a meaning to them. I mean, for myself, it's just that because my grandfather started the collection, and then my father has always been very, united. That was his number, and I think that just was sort of installed in me. That's why I didn't want it to go out of the family when he sold his last car. So it's more of a personal pride and identity.
In relation to that question, a friend of mine in my hometown of Alliance, her dad had the Rambler dealership in the Nash, and their license plate was 124, and their phone number was 124, and their dog tag was 124.
Yeah. They identify it with certain, things in their lives and dates, and I think that's why it means so much to them. So, yes?
I grew up in Gage County, was number 3, and I think it was in the 40s. Scotts Bluff got to be third in population, and they wanted our 3 for their 21, and that was, again, controversy like was Custer.
Probably, yeah, the Gage County residents at that time were just as upset as the Custer County. And, some other articles I've read, it's like a sense of identity out in the rural regions of the state, that if you see a number 1 out there, you know that they're from Omaha and they're not from around there. Or even state patrolmen will say, if they see a number that's not to that locality, then they know someone's out of place. So it does become sort of a identification issue, whether good or bad sometimes. Yes?
Do you still live in Cass County?
Yes, I do. I live on...
You're 20.
Yeah, I live on the family farm. My mother and father grew up a mile from each other, and I live on my mother's family farm. And our house was put on the National Register. That's probably been 15 years ago already. Mom, is that right? And so yes, it's definitely a family thing. The farm we live on will be in the family for 100 years next year, and my father's family farm was in the family for 100 years about 10 years ago. So another devotion of why I still was able to get the same license plate. I still live in the county. Okay. All right, well, if there are no more questions, if any of you would like to talk to me afterwards, that'll be fine too. Thank you.
They are our memories, our families, our tragedies, and our triumphs. Photos and artifacts retell the remarkable history of Nebraska. Hi, I'm Ken Burns. My films Baseball and the Civil War would not have been possible without places like the Nebraska State Historical Society. It's one of the best. By preserving the words and images of our past, it's possible to bring century-old stories back to life. Join the Nebraska State Historical Society.